Is the stranger's mysterious world actually Bal'demnic? And is it possible that this is leading directly to a Darth Plagueis tie-in in the Acolyte finale? Greetings again, students of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. Episode 6 of the Acolyte opens with Osha waking up on an odd oceanic world dotted with small islands, rather reminiscent of the Jedi world of Ahch-To. But as we learn through the episode, it seems that Chimere has actually been hiding here for quite some time, using it as his main base of operations. Not only that, but there are veins of cortosis ore within the island itself. Bal'demnic was a prominent world to the Sith that features large deposits of cortosis ore in the distant world. For those who recognize the name, it's likely because you've seen it in Legends continuity or the Darth Plagueis novel, as this is where our story begins. In today's holocron opening, we are going to be discussing the world of Bal'demnic, analyzing why it was so deeply important to the Sith and a possible connection to Plagueis or Darth Tenebris. Now, let us begin. The year is 67 BBY, and we are first introduced to the world of Bal'demnic with Plagueis and his master Tenebris, visiting the world in the opening chapter of the novel. Within the deep caverns, the Sith are overseeing a small mining operation of cortosis ore, as Darth Tenebris had been tipped off to the planet's resources by one of his secret connections, through the subtext of the mining corporation. Bal'demnic was an incredibly valuable world to the Sith Lords because cortosis was extremely difficult to find and to mine. Not only was it scarce as a natural resource, but the Jedi Order went through great lengths of controlling all operations of mining and refining the mineral due to its lightsaber-destroying properties. However, Bal'demnic was looked over because of its natural deposits of cortosis were not widely known to the galaxy. But not only this, the natives of Bal'demnic, known as the Gnome species, were isolationists and not friendly to any outsider. But we'll get to that species in just a moment. Tenebris and Plagueis stood in the cave, discussing how they could poetically bring the rule of two to a complete circle. 1,000 years before them, Darth Bane began his seminal years as a cortosis miner on the tiny world of Apatros, and now the cycle was complete, the rule of two now finding themselves back within the mines of cortosis ore. However, after reminiscing of where the Sith had began, and how powerful they had grown, the two Sith were alerted to an M2 mining droid, as the Sith realized that the droid had found a pocket of lethane gas near the cortosis vein, lethane being an extremely explosive substance. And even though the Sith gave orders for the droid to cease its mining operation, the M2 droid mysteriously ignored the orders and kept on drilling. The Sith just barely made it back through the caverns before the droid hit the pocket of gas, causing a massive explosion that collapsed the entire cavern. Plagueis and Tenebris used the Force to hold the rocks from the cave ceiling aloft so they would not be crushed under the weight of their ship, but Plagueis sensed through the dark side that the time was now and that he must betray his master. So Plagueis directed the rocks he was holding in order to crush Tenebris, sacrificing their ship in the process. This was how Darth Plagueis became the Lord of the Sith, and ultimately inherited his master's mantle. Afterwards, Plagueis would find a way off of Bal'demnic by stowing away on a cargo vessel. Then, he went back to the banking clan, convincing his contacts to invest in buying portions of Bal'demnic for themselves, so as that the secret mining of the cortosis ore could remain a secret. As you can see, the world of Bal'demnic is very important to the Plagueis overall story, as this is truly where Darth Plagueis began his own journey towards a greater power. Bal'demnic is where Darth Plagueis finally conquered his master, in a moment of pure realization. Plagueis would continue to maintain interest in the cortosis-rich planet for the rest of his life, until, of course, his untimely death, where Palpatine then took possession of the land. But as important as the planet is to the Sith Order, can we be absolutely positive that the strange planet that the stranger inhabits is actually Bal'demnic? And although the world that we see in canon definitely has similarities to the one in Legends continuity, the two worlds have differences as well. The world was located on the Ariel sector of the Outer Rim, an area in space that is largely obscured by a large asteroid field. Ironically enough, this was the same sector that housed the Jedi world of Ossus. Bal'demnic is a largely aquatic world with polar ice caps and a main continent. This is where Plagueis and Tenebris were looking for cortosis ore on this main section of land. However, this continent was quite small, with the rest of the world being pockmarked with various rocky islands. At first glance, the world is a tropical paradise as it boasts sparkling water, sunny beaches with scenic waves crashing against white sand shores. But the planet is not as welcoming as it may seem on the surface. Despite its vacation-worthy appearance, Bal'demnic's atmosphere is not breathable to most beings. While on the world, Plagueis and Tenebris had to wear respirator masks and envirosuits. This is the biggest and the most prominent difference between the legend story of Chimere, as either he nor Osha seem to have any problem breathing the atmosphere. Another distinguishing feature of Bal'demnic is its lack of trees due to how scorchingly hot the environment is, as well as the planet being plagued by deforestation. Because of this, the world experienced torrential rain in wet seasons, high winds, and frequent seismic activity that rendered it difficult to keep regular dwellings there. If this didn't keep most people away from the world though, the hawkbats would, bloodthirsty insects, and the native gnome species would as well. This is the reason why the world was largely left alone by the wider galaxy for so long, and according to Darth Plagueis, the world was only of interest to cartographers, xenobiologists, and some smugglers. But the native species of the gnome is one of the main reasons why it remained so isolated for so long. The species was a reptilian one, part of an extremely strict class-based society. After having leveled most of the world's forests for their own building materials, the gnome built bulb-like dwellings on the jagged cliffsides that overlooked the beaches. The way their system worked was the higher up on the cliffside that you lived, the more elite that you were in their society. The bottom caste were forced to live on the actual shores of the world itself. The elite made all of the decisions for the planet, and the working beach class were the ones that usually dealt with whatever decisions they made. While largely abrasive and unfriendly to most outsiders, they weren't exactly hostile or xenophobic. The largest city of Bal'demnic was the Gnome spaceport, where traders would often pass through the world. Due to their reclusive nature though, the tech of the species was outdated, and when compared to capital cities on most other worlds, the spaceport would look downright third-rate and antiquated. Interestingly, it doesn't seem as though the Gnome very much care about the huge trove of cortosis on the world, as its energy neutralizing properties are pretty much useless to them, and the metal itself is extremely brittle and unsafe to use when building. Raw cortosis ore is already charged, which makes mining it extremely dangerous and an unrewarding process. But eventually, many years after the death of Plagueis, the cat was out of the bag about the cortosis deposits. During the third year of the Clone War, the Separatists were backed into a corner during a time known as the Outer Rim Sieges. In order to regain some sort of advantage, the Separatists made a deal with the Gnome elite in order to allow them to mine on their world, in order for the Separatists to use cortosis in their new line of anti-Jedi battle droids. However, the working beach class of the species despised this decision and hated having off-worlders drilling on their planet and forcing them to work for the Separatists. The low class eventually staged an uprising against the Separatist movement, and ironically enough, the elite Gnome didn't actually oppose the rebellion and allowed it to happen. Using weapons smuggled by them for war profiteers, the working class citizens fought tooth and nail with the droid army of the Separatists. Soon, the Jedi Council would intercept a message from Bal'demnic, one that detailed the Separatist activity and the war that was currently going on the world. Realizing what it would mean if the enemy got their hands on cortosis, Mace Windu acted fast and dispatched 2 Jedi. Their names were Halagad Ventor and Sha Kun, the niece of Plo Koon. Accompanying them was a full Republic attack force in order to aid the native species. However, when the Republic touched down, the situation was escalated. As the Gnome rebels became overwhelmed, they panicked and started opening fire on all of the off-worlders, Republic and Separatist alike. Neither side of the war was familiar enough with fighting on rocky beach terrain either, resulting in a massive advantage for the native species. In the chaos, both the Republic and the Separatists were driven off of the world permanently, and neither one ever bothered to return again. However, the Jedi Order did decide to establish a Republic fleet around the world in order to deter the Separatists from attempting to go back. And this is the last we ever hear of Bal'demnic in the lore, but it's assumed that Sidious still kept the world secretly behind him, continuing the mining plots that his master had secured so many years ago, as Palpatine directly inherited Bal'demnic. The planet was covertly extremely important to the Sith, despite there being a couple of differences between what we know of this planet in Legends and how Chimere's island world is presented. Canon is known for making some changes to the material for their own purposes. His planet could very well be a different version of Bal'demnic. We are pretty convinced that this is due to the ecology and the cortosis ore vein, which was purposefully shown in the episode of the Acolyte. Not only this, but it could have potential tie-ins to either Plagueis or Tenebris. If we were to match up the timeline, then Darth Tenebris would know about this planet around this time, and would actually have started his own mining operation there. Considering that Chimere has a personal stash of cortosis armor, we can assume that he's been doing some mining himself, or at least has a private operation. With all of the other factors presented, it makes a lot of sense why the Rule of Two would actually hide here, as literally no one would willingly want to go to Bal'demnic. Not only that, but Chimera is hiding out of one of millions of islands that the world is dotted with, making it nigh impossible to ever find him. All the while, he can be reaping the benefits of training an apprentice and mining cortosis. But of course, there's always the chance that the real Dark Lords of the Sith may return to the planet soon in order to get their own cut of cortosis. But what do you think, my friends? Do you wonder if this unknown planet is actually Bal'demnic in disguise? And do you think that we may see Plagueis or Tenebris in the show? Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments down below, and your thoughts on the world overall. And as always, may the Force be with you.